I am not an alarmist, and that's just not my style, and I'm not going to start that tonight right here on News Talk 820 WBAP. My name is Jeff, Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Krok tonight as Chris is out, and you've got me sitting in. I'm not an alarmist. My story is I grew up as a kid up in Ohio, the state of Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. Worked in radio all my life. Ended up falling into talk radio because I found myself just having an opinion. I follow the news. I watch the news. I read the news. And I go to multiple sources. Like many of you, and many of you won't admit it, I watch CNN a lot. I watch MSNBC a lot. I watch NBC, all the channels a lot, and then I watch Fox News also. And it amazes me as a consumer of news that you can watch multiple news sources and get opposite stories. I mean, stuff to the point. I had a conversation with somebody in the hallway this morning about this, and said, I just don't know what to believe anymore. It's a struggle. It's a challenge. The lead tonight is this. Again, I'm not an alarmist, but the lead is this. Our world is much more unsafe tonight than it's been in many years. Our economy is much more on the brink of demise than it has been in years. Our morality, not only around the world, but here in our country and right here in the state of Texas, is on the demise and more questionable than ever before. I wish I could sit here and tell you things are hunky-dory. I wish I could tell you that things are great, that there's a lot to look forward to. But again, I'm not a negative person. I really am not. Many of you listened to me before. Westside Jeff and for Chris Krok. I'm not a negative guy. And I'm also not an alarmist. I hate watching television newscasters, television analysts, television opinionated people, and listening to opinionated people on the radio and just going, the world is doom and gloom and it's coming to an end. They're an alarmist. That's just not me, not my style. I'll turn it off. I'm not an alarmist. But I got to tell you, tonight I feel less secure, less safe, less financially fit than I have in a long, long time. You heard the news, top of the hour news there a moment ago. Sean Allen in the newsroom. I talked to Sean earlier, right before we went live. And his headline was, Israel is anticipating an attack by Iran. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. When I turned on the news tonight, one of the things I did tonight when I got home, after my day job and before I came to the studio, is I always go up and down the dial and watch the news. And tonight I chose NBC News, and I was interested with Lester Holt, and I was interested to just write down the stories and the kind of headlines. The first story they talked about was earthquake in Los Angeles. The second story they talked about is VP Harris rallies over the weekend with crowds while over the weekend Trump going down a rabbit hole and really ripping on that. The third story he talked about was U.S. deploying guided missile submarine to the Mideast as Israel braces for retaliation from Iran. And I thought, why isn't that the lead? Why is the lead the earthquake? We're at the brink of war. And our third story is U.S. deploying guided missile submarine to the Mideast as Israel braces for retaliation from Iran. My immediate thought was, I hope this idiot, excuse my French, I hope this president isn't going to get us into war. And where is he through all this? I'll come back to that in about 7 minutes. The fourth story is a Jewish man attacked in a street in New York, and they showed it. And the fifth story, number five story tonight in the news. Did you know this? Ukrainian forces are pushing deeper. His headline was Ukrainian forces pushing deeper into Russia. And he goes on to say Ukrainian troops advance 8 miles inside the Russian border. Russian President Putin vowing to retaliate. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham comes out to the cameras today in Kyiv and said, bold, brilliant, and beautiful. Putin started this. Let's kick his ASS. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. What happened? I remember months and months and months ago, maybe a year ago, when the whole Ukraine, it probably was somewhere around a year ago, when Ukraine was being attacked by Russia after the last Olympics. And the president of the United States come out and said, it's their war between Russia and Ukraine. We're not getting involved. I remember him being asked many times about America's involvement. And he said, no troops, no support, no weapons, no weaponry. But ever since then, the narrative has changed. His line of scrimmage has changed many times. You talk about waffling. This administration has waffled. It went from nothing to let's support them, and let's support them to defend themselves. I specifically remember watching the news months ago where reporters at the White House were asking, will we send jets to Ukraine? And KJP said deferred to the Pentagon. And the Pentagon, John Kirby and his team said, no, we will not send. And I remember reading story after story after story, because all I could think about was, wait a minute, they're spending way too much time trying to convince me that we will not send jets and or troops on the ground to Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. And all the talk was defense, 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 defense. It was all about defending Ukraine. Ukraine was in a defensive mode. Russia was the aggressor. Ukraine was a defender. So Ukraine was a victim. And they spent way too much time trying to tell me and you that wasn't going to happen. I remember specifically reading multiple times U.S. senators, congressmen, folks in the military, and key decision-making people who said that aircraft, selling United States aircraft, military aircraft to Ukraine would give them the ability to be aggressive, the aggressors, to go into Russia. So we wouldn't do that. But months ago, they decided, let's do it because we're doing it on the guise of allowing them to defend themselves. Let's sell the aircraft to Ukraine so they can defend themselves. Now, if you got opinions or comments on this, I feel free to weigh in on this. Again, Westside Jeff is my name in for Chris Krok. You can dial in at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. 800-288-9227 if you want to weigh in on an opinion on this. So I pick up a paper on Friday night, and I read over the weekend a story from USA Today. And the story says thousands of Russians fled Kursk region Thursday as Ukrainian tanks rolled deeper into Russia territory. And I'm going, whoa, wait, time out. I'm reading that, and I'm going back and reading again and going, did I read this right? Thousands of Russians have fled the Kursk region Thursday as Ukrainian tanks rolled deeper into Russian territory. And I thought, what happened to the defending Ukraine versus aggressive Ukraine? Story goes on and says it was the third day of Ukraine's boldest strike on President Vladimir Putin's forces since the war began more than 2 years ago. Putin called the Ukrainian attack a major provocation. Now, Russian authorities say about 1,000 Ukrainian troops rammed through the Russian border on last Tuesday, supported by tanks, armored vehicles, and swarms of drones and pounding artillery. The Institute for Study of War, citing aerial photos, said Ukraine's troops appeared to have advanced more than 6 miles into Russian territory. Ukraine's military has been silent on that offensive. That was over the weekend. So I was talking to a friend of mine Sunday about this, about being on the radio. We were talking about this and said, what are you going to talk about? And I said, did you know that Ukrainian military is on the aggressive and gone into Russia on the attack? And he said, no. And this is somebody who would know. This is somebody in the media business. I said, yeah, it's called the Friday afternoon news dump. That's what happened Friday. There's more about this story that I want to tell you. The update that occurred today, I want to tell that to you in about 3.5, 4 minutes. We're talking about Ukraine on the aggressive, on the attack in Russia. That's different than what we are led to believe from our administration over the last several months. And my question to you is this: where the hell is the United States government administration? Because nobody's come out and talked about it. And I say, damn be them. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You want to weigh in on this? 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. So I was just talking a moment ago about the fact that I saw a story over the week. I call it, you've heard me talk about this before. It's called I call it the Friday afternoon news dump. If you want to break news, if you want to bury a news item, this happens all the time in your life and my life. You need to, as a consumer of news and information, you've got to pay attention to this. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok, you want to connect with me, you can pick up the phone and call me at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP, or pick up your mobile device and hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff on X, formerly known as Twitter, also on Instagram and on Facebook. I get a lot of messages on Facebook and X throughout the show, which I'll interact with as best I can. Or just 800-288-9227. So I'm reading a story over the weekend, and this was the byline is USA Today that says thousands of Russians fled the Kursk region Thursday as Ukrainian tanks rolled deeper into Russian territory. It was the third day of Ukraine's boldest strike on President Putin's forces since the war began more than 2 years ago. And all I could think about was, what? Did you know that Ukraine was on the aggressive? Did you know that Ukraine was pushing their military pushing into Russia? So we've armed them on the idea that we would help them defend themselves, and yet now they're the aggressor. So my comments on this are a bunch of things. First and foremost, I'm going to waffle as a talk show host, which they tell you not to do. The whole Russia-Ukraine thing, my immediate thought, and I've said this all along, is anything the West, meaning non-Russia, can do to weaken Russia, I think is a good thing. But we have to navigate it in a way that it doesn't escalate into World War III. We just can't. We can't let that happen. And what's going on, Sean Allen in the newsroom a moment ago, top of the hour news, the headline that he had was, I had to write it down, is Israel is anticipating an attack by Iran. Well, yesterday, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, came out and also stated that we are sending a nuclear strike missile sub to the region, and also speeding up an aircraft carrier group to get there. Our world is more unsafe than it was weeks ago. It's more unstable than it was weeks ago. It's certainly more unstable than it was 4 years ago. And yet we have a president of the United States that has not come out and addressed this. And I say that's BS. Our country is less safe. Our country has less fiscal soundness to it. And we need more than ever leadership. And when you have a vice president who's running for president, day 22 of no sit-down interviews, of discussions, of stances on policy, that's BS. That's absolute BS. We've got leadership that are just absolutely evasive to the American people. And shame on the American national reporting media for not doing their job and pressing for it. That's disgusting. The latest on the incursion into Ukrainian incursion into Russia. President Vladimir Putin today, he's the Russian president, lashed out at the West over Ukraine's week-long incursion into Russian territory. Now, this was a tense televised meeting he had with his top officials today. It's a sign of how the surprise attack has unsettled the Kremlin. And according to that televised thing they did in Russia, now again, who knows what you can believe coming out of Russia, it was a surprise attack. Ukraine's move has had two main goals, according to analysts of war. Number one, to draw Russian forces from front lines in eastern Ukraine and to seize territory that could serve up as a bargaining chip in future peace negotiations. Now, you know Ukraine's not doing this without the help of the West, meaning America. My question for them is this. Where are the other NATO forces? Are we the only ones involved in this? Where are the Britons? Where are the French? Where are the Germans? Where are the Swiss? Where are the other countries involved in this? Because I hope it's not just America. Ukraine's move, again, those two goals, but Putin speaking with security chiefs today and regional governors at his residence outside Moscow insisted that the attack would not soften his negotiation positions. And even as Moscow scrambled to respond to the incursion into Kursk region, Russian forces have continued to pummel Ukrainian forces in the east. So clearly, this has been escalated. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? How do you feel about that? Does that sit well with you? Because it doesn't with me. Now, Putin today said, quote, the West is fighting us with hands of the Ukrainians, he said. Goes on to say, the enemy will certainly get the response they deserve, and all the goals, without a doubt, will be accomplished. Now, the Kursk region's acting governor, Alexei Smirnov, was shown in this video with Putin, telling Putin by video link that 28 towns and villages were under Ukrainian control. He said Ukrainian troops had pushed 7 miles into Russian territory along a 25-mile front, that 12 civilians had died in fighting, and that 2,000 people were believed to be Ukrainian-held territory. My immediate thought on that is, okay, he's going to get the Alexei Naivov, or what are the guy's name, Alexei something, the treatment from Putin. This guy's going to get erased, and there's going to be somebody else in play. So my questions about what's going on in the world today. We're less stable than ever before with what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. We're less stable with what's going on because of Iran, Iraq, that whole region, the Middle East, and additional forces being sent over there by America. Our economy is very volatile. More than ever, we need leadership. Where's the leadership in this country? Where is the president of the United States? Where are the leaders of our country of coming out and saying it's going to be okay and telling us the truth as opposed to feeding us a bunch of BS? I have a problem with that. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? How's that make you feel that we're being lied to, not told to, and not forthright about the news about the unstableness across the region, across the country, across the world, and economically, even right here in Dallas? My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. I'd like to say that we are consumers. You and I are consumers of news. And we are consumers of recency. Recency. Let me explain that. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok, Chris is out tonight. He'll be back tomorrow night. Joining me and my team tonight is in the newsroom, Sean Allen. As you've heard Sean, you'll continue to hear Sean at the top of the hour and bottom of the hour, as well as if there's breaking news, he'll break in and let me know if there's something significant going on. And then my producer, Thomas Winsler. Thomas, thank you for being working with me tonight and producing. If you call in tonight, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227, say hello to Thomas. Thomas will take the call and ask you your name, where you're calling from, what you want to talk about. And as I'm sitting here next to him in the studio and I can see him through the glass, he'll type me a note, hey, Jeff, so-and-so wants to talk to you about XYZ. So feel free to weigh in. Thank you, Thomas, for being there. It's 800-288-9227. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, and also on Instagram. I get many messages throughout the night. Again, Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok. So I mentioned a moment ago, we are consumers of news, but more so consumers of recency. And let me explain that. Today is Monday. It's August 12th. If I asked you what the headline was in our local newspaper here, or any of your community newspapers, or a headline on television national news, or on this radio station, last Thursday, can you tell me what it was? I can't either. I could just tell you what it was 30 minutes ago. And that's because news changes by the minute, and it's a fast cycle. We live in an era that we hear the news, whether it be on radio or on watch it on television or read it in the paper, one of the papers or some publication, or you listen to news items and podcasts. And 2 hours later, it's old news. We're on to the next story. It's called recency. So we make opinions based off of recency. And very few times does a story have shelf life. And when I say shelf life, does it live in the mind of you and I as a consumer over time, that we remember the story and it continues to vet itself out? There are a few stories recently that have. One of those stories is the assassination attempt at Donald Trump. We're still talking about it. Another story is Biden being pushed out by the Democratic Party. You know, the Democratic Party says democracy's under attack, but it's the Democrats themselves who kept every other Democrat off the ballot when they knew Joe Biden was a problem. And Joe Biden won the nominee through delegates, pledged delegates, yet the Democrats pushed him out of the way and inserted Kamala Harris in there without any kind of a vote or primary. Yet the Democrats tell us that democracy's under attack. Now, let me tell you, if the Republicans did that, you know what the hell would happen? I mean, again, voters, first of all, Democrats were left off the ballot against Joe Biden. Now, under normal conditions, I would understand the concept of that. But we're not dealing with normal conditions because the Democrats in the party across this country knew Joe Biden was incapacitated. They knew he did not have mental acuity to handle the office of the president. They knew it all along. They knew it 4 years ago it was a problem. You see, 4 years ago when Bernie was on his way to the nomination, the party behind closed doors closed and shut and locked the doors and said, we got a problem. What are we going to do? We got to find somebody who we have name recognition with, who we have credibility with, who can counter Donald Trump, who can win. Joe Biden, let's put him in place. Again, democracy's under attack by the Republicans, yet the Democrats are the ones that did that 4 years ago. So what'd they do? The Democratic Party united behind a guy named Joe Biden, and they anointed him as the nominee for the party and drug him over the finish line for the office of the president 4 years ago. So they're in a position today because of what they did 4 years ago by threatening democracy, as they say, we're the ones that's a real threat to democracy. Yet that story doesn't get told to anybody because it doesn't meet their narrative. 800-288-9227 is a phone number. If you want to weigh in, you can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. So advancing 4 years later to now, Kamala is the nominee. Yet the story that still remains is Joe Biden was pushed from the ticket. I'd love to be on the fly on the wall and know what was promised to Joe on the back end, because you know that wasn't just real simple, Joe, you're stepping aside and we're moving Kamala in. That was a negotiation. That took a couple months, or took a couple weeks. By the way, I sat in this chair for Chris Krok last November. And I predicted that story was going to happen. And many of you called and said, Jeff, you're an idiot. Don't know what you're talking about. There's no way that's going to happen. Joe's going to be the nominee. And I said then, last November, I wish I had the tape. I can go back and play it. I wish I had it so I can find it again. But I said then, in November of next year, meaning this year, November of 2024, the two nominees will not be Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And it might not be either of them. I'm convinced it's going to be Trump now. But hell, it's easy to say that now, less than 100 days to election, but kind of hard to say that last November, a year before an election. But I just felt it wasn't going to be Biden versus Trump. I just didn't know if Biden wasn't going to be the guy or Trump wasn't going to be the guy. I knew Biden was incapacitated. I knew his mental acuity wasn't there. I knew what had happened on the inside because I've worked within the world of politics. I've seen how politics works. I know what they do. They eat their own sometimes. And I know exactly what was going on. They elevated Joe into that role real fast, real quick to usurp Bernie so Bernie wouldn't win. So that was purely a preemptive move. That was a shot across the bow. That didn't play out because of democracy. That played out of desperation. That's what that did. So I just knew Joe wasn't there. I just didn't know how long it would take them to get rid of Joe and how it would happen in the negotiation process. And I kept being surprised throughout the course of this year as Joe was, they kept Kennedy and all the others off the nomination, off the ballots across the country, made it hard for him to get on there so that Joe was the only candidate you could vote for. Now, we know later, the reality is all the Democrats stood up and said, oh, Joe is sharp as ever. He's great. He's on top of it. He's got good control. Well, my question to all those folks right now, where is he tonight? At a time when our world is less safe than ever before, at a time when we're sending a nuclear-powered sub to the Middle East, at a time when we have ballistic missiles headed on a sub, Tomahawks, to the Middle East, at a time when an aircraft carrier group is being, quote unquote, sped up to get there quicker. Where is the President of the United States? When Ukraine is pushing forward and advancing into Russia, where's the President of the United States? When the economy is volatile like it has been, which, by the way, is because of policies of this presidency. Where is the President of the United States? Where's Kamala Harris? You see, they're doing what they did in 2020. They're hiding from the American press. And the American press is letting them do it. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with the press. The role of the press is supposed to be the watchdog of the community, the watchdog of the government. They ain't watching nothing. They're a public relations arm for the Democratic Party. That's what they are. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You got an opinion, you want to weigh in on some of the things we're talking about, 800-288-9227 is the phone number sitting in for Chris Krok. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff across social media. I'll tell you in about 4 minutes some of the moves that Lloyd Austin came out and said and how that impacts what's going on with the world volatility that we might be headed towards World War III. I'm not an alarmist. I am not an alarmist. But what I'm seeing scares the living crap out of me. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok, I'm on News Talk 820 WBAP. And now on 93.3 FM. You've heard me say several times before over the last couple years and talk to you about what I call the Friday afternoon news dump. And the concept is this. If you want to bury a story in the world of news so that consumers of news, you and I, don't pay attention to it, that we don't react to it, that we don't become alarmists over it, it's called the Friday afternoon news dump. You dump it on a Friday afternoon. And I'm talking about not the media itself, but the news the news engine, call it. If the government wants to release a story that gets swept under the rug, they do it on a Friday afternoon. When your company that you work for wants to release bad news, firing people, letting people go, stuff they want to be buried, they do it on a Friday afternoon. When organizations have bad news like breaches of security, they drop it on Friday afternoons. Why? Because if you want to bury a story, you do it on a Friday afternoon when you and I, the news consumer, is going into our weekend and we're not as attuned to the news as we would be if it were a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You want to bury a story, you drop it on Friday afternoon. Again, it's not the media doing that. The media reporting about it occurs on a Friday afternoon. But consumer ears, consumer eyeballs, and consumer engagement on a Friday afternoon, a Friday night, and a Saturday is less than it is on any other day. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. If you want to weigh in, 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. You talk to Thomas. Thomas will take the call. He'll get your name, shoot me a note, tell me what you want to talk about, and then you and I get a chance to talk, and you get to share your opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on Friday afternoon news dumps. It happens all the time. Also in the newsroom tonight is my buddy Sean Allen. I appreciate my partnership with Sean. Sean, coming up in the 9 o'clock newscast, has a story, an update on Iran possibly attacking Israel soon. He's got an update on that. Also has a story about AG Ken Paxton suing Energy about over Texas law. And another story, Biden is promoting Trump's no tax on tips policy. So is Kamala. He'll have that story coming up in about 9 minutes, top of the hour newscast. So we're talking about Friday afternoon news dump. You want to bury a story, bad news, you release it on Friday afternoon. So on Friday afternoon this last week, by the way, you want to make that story even less impactful, you do it on a Friday afternoon in the middle of summertime when it's vacation season, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before school starts, as you and I, parents, are thinking about taking our kids back to schools, that last minute vacation push. Oh, by the way, the Friday of the closing of the Olympics. So you're touching all the bases on this one, right? It's a Friday afternoon. It's a close of the Summer Olympics. It's the heightened vacation season. The people are getting last-minute vacations out of the way before school starts. And those who aren't vacationing are worried about back-to-school spending and going to sessions in advance of school and colleges and things like that. By the way, we'll talk about college, going back to college, come up in one of the next hours, about how tough that is. If you're a parent and taking your kid to college, it's an emotional drain. So Friday, we find out that the U.S. the Pentagon releases that they've ramped up military moves towards the Middle East. And as the story goes on, just today, just in the last 2 hours, Israel has put its military in high alert. As the Pentagon, the U.S. has sent a guided missile submarine to the Middle East as tensions grow in that region. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also had said that an aircraft carrier, which was already headed to the area, would, quote unquote, sail there more quickly. So they've stepped up the efforts. Now, the story to me that I just shared with you about that, what makes this compelling is this. When's the last time that you remember the Pentagon releasing that kind of information? When's the last time you remember the Pentagon ever saying, we're deploying a guided missile submarine that's been ordered to the region, and that's been an aircraft carrier group has been ordered to speed up the arrival to join a second aircraft carrier group? When's the last time you heard that? I don't recall that either. My immediate thought is hopefully that is a kind of a warning shot over the bow to release. I always say information gets released for a very specific reason. I hope the very specific reason of that is to send a message that U.S. might is going over there. But my immediate question is this. Where are all the NATO nations? Where are our allies? Why is it Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has an aircraft carrier group as well as a nuclear power sub that shoots off Tomahawk missiles? Why is it we're sending them, but there's no talk about who else has military assets on the move? Now, the move comes in response to fears of a wider regional conflict after the recent assassination of senior Hezbollah and Hamas leaders. What it does is it signals U.S. determination to help defend Israel from any attack by Iran, with Lloyd Austin saying, quote unquote, the U.S. would take every possible step to defend its ally. My question is, where are other NATO nation standings right now? Why are we the only ones? I want to continue this conversation. Top of the hour news, we've got Sean Allen with an update on what's going on with those groups headed towards the Middle East. On the other side of that, we'll continue the conversation of why are we the only ones doing it right now? And where is the United States leadership on telling us what the plan is and comforting us to let us know what they are doing about it? I just feel like Biden and this administration is not engaged. That's a problem. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.